Good evening, I'm Dan Hogan, host of Centel Spotlight, and tonight I want to welcome you to Centel's 12 Channels of Christmas. And now let's both just relax and enjoy Centel's Christmas gift for you. And first off, we'll be viewing the second annual Christmas Boat Parade. The sun has just set here in the west as the boats come in this evening on Spring Lake. And it's rather interesting that officially the parade started at 5 in the evening from the Lake Howard boat dock on the east side and making its way through part of the chain of lakes here in Winter Haven. All boats and groups assembled at 4:30 and able to start at 5 o'clock. And the captains attached their squadron boat numbers, one sign on the stern and one sign on the port left side, and the boats lined up by boat numbers in their squadron. The parade control began the parade by directing the police boat to proceed with boats in Squadron 1 following. And of course we have the police boat with its traditional blue light flashing, leading the boats in the lineup of the parade this evening. And it's really a lovely sight right now in Lake Spring as more boats come in to this particular lake in the chain. And it's quite interesting that several condominiums face this lake. I bet a lot of people are enjoying watching from their actual residence off their various balconies this evening. I can see a lot of lights off and a lot of lights on. I suppose those with the lights on are actually watching from their condominiums, and of course a lot of people have come right down to the lake itself, and I guess we can safely say that accounts for the lights off. Okay. Also overhead is a plane flying this evening, so we're getting a little air and sea action here all at one time. Well, let's get back and describe some of these boats to you. I see one passing me right now that has a little Santa Claus on it. And we have several boats from several marinas. Osborne Marine has furnished a boat or more tonight. Also, Marine Supplies we mentioned earlier, Lakeside Marine. We have one boat here with the First Baptist Choir aboard, and Les Dunson is involved in that particular boat, bringing those fine folks around. Another boat has Bob Ortiz on it. We have a rescue boat with Leon Long in charge, and the Canal Commission has a boat with the Nazarene Choir on board. Lou Parrott has a boat. Saw him at dockside earlier today. He was anxious to get rolling, I noticed. We have Bob Guthrie on another boat. Cypress Gardens is furnishing the boat that you will see eventually here with Noel on it, kind of a neon Christmas light effect. Right now passing me is what appears to be Santa's barge. I see Santa Claus out there. His particular boat, he's waving a red flashlight, also has a Christmas star on board there. And a lot of kids are involved in this. I imagine this is a fun evening for kids. So many people say Christmas is for kids, but tonight the grown-ups get to share in it as they guide the boats around Lake Spring here. And I think they've done a fine job, and I think you'll agree with me with decorating the boats with a lot of Christmas lights. It makes for quite a spectacle this evening. Also, on one of the boats will be the brass band from Winter Haven High School. Charles Stum is in charge of that particular boat. Of course, we mentioned Santa's canal barge. We have the sheriff on board one of the boats. Hope he can swim. Well, 8 miles per hour, I don't think he has to worry about that too much. And of course, we have the Game and Fish Commission represented here, which is a natural choice for something of this sort. And it's a very nice spectacle, I suppose, not only for the residents watching live at the moment, but also all of you viewers watching on Centel Cable, Channel 8. And this is Centel's first effort here at filming this particular venture, and we hope to do some more of that, of course, in the future years to come here. Quite a nice Christmas event. Something different, and something, as I said, very nice for the Winter Haven area. The area itself, with all of the lakes, lends itself to something like this. As Ken Recker, chairman of the Canal Commission, mentioned, this is Burris's Navy. That's what he chooses to call it, because George Burris came up with the idea, and they've been going strong here 2 years in a row. I Spoke briefly with George Burris before they got things underway. He was the man in charge of getting everybody lined up, getting things in order to get them off and rolling throughout the chain here. And as we mentioned earlier, the parade marshals, Carl Strang and Marjorie Rowe, some of you may know her as Mrs. Willard Rowe, one and the same lady. They are the official 1983 Bankers Cup awardees, if you will. And of course, part of that is for them to be parade marshals in this event this evening. And quite an event it is, quite a spectacle for children and adults alike, as we said earlier, as the boats continue to make their way through our vantage point here. And we think this is a tradition that we're going to keep going here, and we hope so. It'll probably get bigger every year. If we had about 16 boats last year and about 37 this year, who knows how many we can round up for next year's event. Once again, from my vantage point, a plane is flying over. They're getting the traditional bird's eye view, looking down on the boats, and it all makes for quite an evening here. As we set our vantage point, if you're just tuning in, is Spring Lake on Highway 17 in Winter Haven, just across from the familiar Banyan Beach Motel. As I said earlier, they're nice enough to lend us their dock facilities for a good viewing area here, so we can bring this fine parade to you. And of course, as we mentioned earlier, that one boat that did dock here from the Canal Commission did have one of our cameramen on board. If I'm not mistaken, it was cameraman Kevin, who went throughout the parade route. Of course, you'll be seeing various parts of that as I give this commentary to you this evening, and it will make for an interesting vantage point, what it's like from one of the boats as they go through a portion of the chain here. And it's quite interesting to note that the Chamber of Commerce wanted to make this a family thing, and per se they don't have any commercial entries. As we mentioned, of course, Cypress Gardens and several local marinas are involved, but they are doing so because they want to be involved as a part of the community, and that's the nice part of it. Now, coming into my vantage point is the boat from Cypress Gardens with Noel on it. Quite a spectacular sight. Noel in green letters outlined in moving red, and also what looks like an individual fireworks display within the Noel display with both red and blue lights visible there. Quite a sight that is to see. Of course, in the background now I can hear some singing. As we said, a choir is involved this evening and a band is involved, making it quite a musical event and good company for all the boaters as they go through the chain to hear a lot of Christmas music, keeping them in the Christmas spirit as they go through the portion of the chain that they are going through. And let me just help you out here. Those of you familiar with the Winter Haven chain of the lakes, as we said, their starting point was the public boat ramp on the east side of Lake Howard. They went through the canal to Lake Cannon, on through another canal to Lake Mirror, then coming through our canal here into Lake Spring. They're now circling Lake Spring around the Florida Highway Christmas tree. They will then be going back through the canal here, again into Lake Mirror, through the other side of Lake Mirror, and on through that canal back into Lake Cannon, again into Lake Howard. From that point, they will venture forth through the canal into Lake May. As I tell you this, the brass band is playing on one of the boats right now. And they'll be going from Lake May on into Lake Ship. At that point, they will disband, and as it so interestingly states here in my advance brochure, at that point, the boats are no longer in a parade. They are on their own. So from that point, they can dock or do whatever they want to. But the parade does end in Lake Ship. And let's see how many lakes that totals. Perhaps you've already counted. Lake Howard was 1, Lake Cannon was 2, Lake Mirror 3, our Lake Spring 4, Lake May 5, and Lake Ship 6. There's applause in the background, either for the brass band, the choir, the Cypress Gardens Noel float, or the fact that your host here, Dan Hogan, can count at least up to 6 lakes. which is probably refreshing that I can count, and now everybody in Winter Haven knows it. Little music in the background, ladies and gentlemen. I'd get up and do a little dance, but then we're not here for that, are we? I'll be quiet so you can possibly hear the music in the background for a while. Quick applause there from the folks here at Dockside with us, applauding the brass band making Christmas music. And here we go with another song. Okay, as the music fades back out, as the musical people get further away from our vantage point, as we mentioned earlier, this parade is definitely a community effort. Cypress Gardens and the Canal Commission each were to provide and have provided a lighted animated barge each. As I said, some of the marinas are providing the boats for the VIPs, the dignitaries, the color guard, and the musical groups this evening. Other boats, of course, are provided by individuals, and it's intended that all participating boats are to be decorated this evening with the traditional Christmas lights, and all persons participating, again, a safety feature, were required to, of course, have life jackets on during the parade. The parade is now ending here, I see. We have the traditional blue light. Not only did we have it in the beginning, we've got it at the end. Kind of like the caboose, ladies and gentlemen, but an interesting sight, and I'm glad you could be part of it with us here on Centel Cable-TV of Florida. You know, so many cities in America have their annual Christmas parade, but none, I think, is as unique as our Winter Haven Christmas boat.